Okay, Trey.
Hey, they're out there on YouTube. We're going to do a show. It's Bernie bait. We're going to do a Bernie show coming up in 3, 2, 1. 2, 3. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary, at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show. It is episode number 50. We're at a halfway to the century mark. I'm going to put this in the category of 2020, and basically that means if we do a show talking about the election that's still a year and a half away, that everyone says, why are we doing shows about the election that's a year and a half away? It's way too early. I'll put up the 2020, and so you know. February 21st, 2019, The Berning Answer, because we did a show about 6 weeks ago called The Berning Question. That's Berning, Berning, for the audio audience. Sorry, screwing you up again. And the secret is, he's running. So, that's the big secret. I have an illustrious panel of guests here. So I'm going to push the right button and bring them all up. And I was kind of hoping Elizabeth would have gotten back on here so she could tell us about all of you. So instead, you're going to have to tell us about yourselves, and we will start on screen left, and that is with another Elizabeth, but we're going to go with just Liz Myers Chamberlain. There's your official title. Say hello to the Triangle Talk Show audience.
Well, hello. It's nice to be here with you today. I'm Liz Myers Chamberlain, and I'm brand new to North Carolina. My husband and I just moved to Pinehurst, North Carolina, just last November from San Diego, California.
And we're going to have your sanity tested on that at some point.
Well, we have 3 wonderful grandchildren, and 2 of them live about 10 minutes from our new home here. And so that's pretty much the reason why we moved. It's the typical reason for the grandchildren.
Are you into golfing or horses?
I myself am not into really either one of them. My husband
You're
is
in the wrong
golfer,
place.
but I do play tennis.
I guess you can do that down there.
So tennis is the thing that we can do down here, definitely.
But I mean, it's golfing and horses is what we think of as Pinehurst.
I know.
As you discovered.
Yeah, I've discovered it, but it's a really pretty place. I like it. And they have really great air here. Very clean, clear air, which I love.
Some of the time.
Yeah. Oh, well. So far, so good.
Yeah, you'll see.
So far, so good.
And you are an unabashed Bernie fan.
Yes. Well, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I became a progressive thinker in college at San Diego State University. I worked for Bobby Kennedy.
Did that come from no place or from some other political persuasion?
I think it's from no place. Or
well, I mean, you didn't care. I mean, I don't care about politics to I think I do.
Well, it was Bobby Kennedy.
Okay.
Yeah. And I worked for him in 1968. I later became an environmental activist after reading Rachel Carson's The Silent Spring. After that, I became a climate activist after I read Al Gore's Earth in the Balance in 1992. And I'm recently retired after 35 years of being a guidance counselor for undergraduates at Revelle College, UC San Diego. I was honored to work with Roger Revelle. You may remember that he is the originator of the term the greenhouse effect. And I'm happy that I wouldn't
have passed that. I wouldn't have gotten that answer right even in a multiple choice test. But.
Well, nevertheless, that's
but he
that's
was.
the case.
We'll take your word for it. We're not going to fact check that.
Yeah. And so now I'm really happy to be retired, and I just get to do whatever I want, all the things that I love.
You'll learn pretty soon. I'm retired, and I don't have time to do anything I want.
Well, you do become really busy, that's for sure.
Yes, you wonder how you ever had time to actually do anything. Okay, so in the upper right-hand corner, if I can get the title on correctly, Gerald Wong. Gerald, say hi to the Triangle Talk Show audience.
Hey there, Gary. On my phone, I'm in the upper left corner now. It's switched around. I got a phone call. It came in, and I ignored it. And then when I came back to the screen, everything changed.
Yeah, so Skype will do that.
But anyway, my name is Gerald Wong. I'm a truck driver with my wife. We own our own little business out here. Right now we're in Las Vegas, Nevada. Our home is in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I ran for the 6th District Congress, U.S. Congress, this last time around. I got shellacked, I would say, by a young man I'm going to be perfectly frank with you. He was a centrist, and I am a progressive, unabashed progressive and Bernie supporter. And I had a good time running. It was eye-opening, made a lot of enemies and a lot of friends. I found out one thing. When you run for Congress, some of your most staunch supporters in the beginning will be your most staunch enemies at the end.
So it's an interesting experience.
To say the least.
I'm not sure who's got folks in the background there.
But anyway, like I was saying, I ran for Congress. It's on my bucket list. I don't know if I will run again or not. I might. But my whole campaign was about getting money out of politics, so I did not ask for donations during the primary, and I pretty much got that. A bunch of nothing.
All right. Yeah, so we will try to learn a little bit more about what it's like running for office a little bit later on in the show. Got a couple other things to do first, but we will try to get in on that. And now in the lower right corner of the split screen is a fellow who tried to get in on the show when we did this before and had technical difficulties. So we've got you this time, and it is Chris Teleska. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Say you gotta for the audio audience, you gotta speak a little bit.
Hello, how are you? This is Chris Teleska calling.
And
you hear me?
We can hear you fine. And
good.
You did wave your hand when I asked who were the Bernie supporters.
Me.
But you also contacted me just before we set up doing this show to talk about voting machines.
Correct.
Okay, so we will add that to the list of things that we will try to get in on the program before we get done. Okay, so I am Gary Pierce. I'm going to call myself the antique activist wannabe because compared to you guys, I'm in terms of being an activist, I kind of started last year. I'm 69 years old, so that's the antique part. And the wannabe is, okay, I started this show and doing a few other things, but I don't have a lot of activism on my resume. So I will count on you guys to be the serious activists. We're going to talk about Bernie.
You never know. You never know what's going to happen in the future.
Okay. We're going to talk about Bernie in a minute, but I wanted to get to one thing first before we talk about Bernie. How many of you guys read newspapers? Are you guys news hounds? Okay.
Yep, I read them every day.
And
most of my reading is done on the internet,
online,
the apps and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a tech nerd. And Liz, I don't know if you've been introduced to the News and Observer yet. That's the big Raleigh paper.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, you got the Pilot down there.
Yeah.
But that's it's pretty much local stuff. It's a small newspaper.
Right.
So the News and Observer is your big area general coverage newspaper. Of course, as a newspaper, it's about a tenth of what it used to be 10 years ago. All newspapers have been shrinking, which is kind of sad. But I try to read it every day. I read it online as well, but I download the PDF version, and I don't get through the whole thing. I don't have all day to read it, and I don't read all that fast. But I skim the stories, and I pick the ones that I really like. But what I will always do is read the comics. That's my dessert. For my reward for catching as much of the rest of the newspaper as I can get is to get to the comics. So how many comics fans do we have?
Right here.
Okay.
Love the comics.
I'm relocating right now, so.
Oh, you got some noise?
Yeah, I got either a dog barking or somebody's brakes are squealing. I don't know.
Okay. Now we'll see what you can do. So I always try to read the comics, and I noticed something in the News and Observer comics. Actually, it was in the News and Observer itself. It was in a story in the paper about one of the comics, and this is the one that I'm talking about for those of you on video. It is a comic titled Non Sequitur by Wiley. I think that's the guy's last name, and I should have remembered his first name, but I don't. It's Non Sequitur by Wiley. He's been in the paper for a long time. He's syndicated to probably 150, maybe 200 newspapers. At least he used to be. And something happened on maybe 2 weeks ago. I think February 10th was the date this happened. And I saw this comic. He presented a strip. It was a Sunday, and it was going to be a coloring page. Now, he doesn't do coloring pages. He was just making fun of some of the other coloring pages that you'll see in the comic section or somewhere else in the newspaper. He's calling it Leonardo Bear Vinci. He drew a bunch of bears in black and white outline. Says, get out your crayons, colored pencils, or markers, and have fun with the Bear Renaissance, from the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo Bear Vinci. And so he drew a bunch of pictures that were like the Leonardo drawings of flying machines and looks like a parachute that would probably kill you. All of these things would probably kill you if you actually tried to use them. And he had scribbled notes around all of them with little arrows pointing at them, looking like the Da Vinci designs for a lot of the things that Da Vinci drew or invented. And in the corner of one of them, pretty unreadable. You'd have to look very hard at this to be able to actually read it. But some people found it. Some people saw it. Now, when I'm looking at the News and Observer version on a PDF, they don't reproduce the comics really well on their PDFs. You don't get you don't get the resolution. It's not really sharp. So this could have looked better in the paper. It could have looked better in other places, but it's a little hard to read. But if you look carefully and know what you're looking for, it will be something like, and by the way, we're allowed to swear here on this program. I pushed the explicit button. Something like My Fond Wish or something like that. Really hard to tell, that top part. The second line is got some splotches in it, and what you can read is the UCK and maybe the word yourself. And then the third line, you can tell that sort of there's a trump there. And what we interpret from that is, I can't read the top line, but the rest of it is, go fuck yourself, Trump. And that ran in 160 or so newspapers on Sunday. I think that was February 10th. And it took a while. We lost Chris, but he'll probably be back. And Elizabeth might be back. It took a while for people to recognize what that was. And then they started, and most of the newspapers ran it and didn't catch it themselves. Again, newspapers are running on shoestrings these days. They don't have people editing the comics. They just get them wholesale and stick them in there. And so all the newspapers started getting inundated with comments and complaints, probably mostly from Trump fans. And a lot of the newspapers, including the News and Observer, have booted this guy out. So you won't be seeing the non sequitur comic in the News and Observer anymore. So that's interesting. But my question is, how outraged should we be? We're in outrage land these days. Does anybody feel outraged, first of all, that the News and Observer would put in an almost unreadable "go fuck yourself," or that they would fire the cartoonist that did it? What do you guys think?
I'm a trucker, so it doesn't bother me in the least. But I'll tell you, like you said, it's hardly legible. He can come back and say it said something entirely different than what we perceived it said. I think that my personal opinion is there's too much being read into this, and to take away a man's livelihood over this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's a little heavy-handed myself. To fire him over that, when it was pretty hard. I think you really had to get out your magnifying glass to see what was said, and it looked like actually he was talking about some guy named Strump.
Let's take another look and see. Yeah.
It was a Strump person he was talking about.
Definitely have to do some interpretation to get all those words.
Or just 402 UCK.
Yeah.
402 UCK your SRL, Trump.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
I mean, come on. I mean, there's nothing. It's not legible or anything. And what did the censors not catch that? Is that what happened?
Right.
Yeah, I think they have to, also blame the people that, put it in the paper, right?
The newspapers.
Aren't they supposed to read those things over?
I've read articles from several newspapers that describe what happened, and they all apologize. They say we depend on the syndicator to do the editing of the comics.
Right.
They don't have staff to do it anymore.
Right. So the syndicator, I guess, is partly to blame.
Yeah.
So the censors are actually the readers, and the readers look at it really fine.
Yep.
But I'm not offended by it in the least. Of course, I don't like Trump. Now, if it said that about Bernie, I might be offended.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the question. What if it had been? Are you familiar with the comic Mallard Fillmore?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, that one is one that News and Observer added a couple of years ago, trying to provide some balance, because they've been running Doonesbury for a long time. They run a couple of politically oriented cartoons or comic strips, and they wanted to add one that's conservative. So Mallard Fillmore is the conservative one. What if that had been in the Mallard Fillmore, and instead of Trump, it would have been Obama, Hillary. We don't really have a good leading Democrat right now to throw arrows at, but
kick around.
Yeah. What if it had been something like that? Would your outrage level have changed?
No.
No, I don't think that most liberals are that incensed about this kind of stuff. No. You have to be you have to be somebody that was raised not being subjected to controversy as much. I've been subjected to a lot of controversy, like this whole thing going on with the governor now of what is it, Virginia?
Yeah,
West Virginia.
Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. And I was going to ask about that because there's been a lot of outrage, and now I particularly wish that Elizabeth was here, because we did a show talking about that, and she felt pretty outraged about the blackface stuff. And I was less so. In fact, I'm not outraged. I understand. I have a pretty good feel for what it's all about. but I don't feel outrage. And now I'm kind of glad that I didn't feel that outrage, because I don't feel this outrage either, like you guys. You know, this doesn't hit my meter very hard either. In fact, it doesn't hit my meter at all.
Right.
Well, you look at the circumstances when it was done. It looks like the blackface on this guy was done during his medical school years, and he was probably at a party, or they were doing some kind of costume thing. Insensitive, yes. The maturity level at the time, probably not so great. And the man has grown a whole lot. I think they impeach him or ask him to quit. Evidently, they can't impeach him, but at their own peril. They have a good Democratic governor. They have a stronger one now that this is out, one that is willing to work more closely with the black community to prove himself. I think it's at their own peril they get rid of him.
Liz?
Well, that's an interesting take on it. That he would be sensitized by this experience that he's gone through. I think he kind of got off to a rough start, though, because he originally apologized, and then he said it wasn't him after that.
Yeah.
And so that was like completely ridiculous. Why did he apologize if he knew that it wasn't him? He didn't remember. But I think he would have been better off to just apologize and just, look at his youthfulness, and, just throw himself on the mercy and explain how much he has grown since then. And how he now realizes that, that was a horrible thing to do. And he's sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if he's had the opportunity or the need to handle delicate situations like that before or not. I sort of get the feeling he doesn't have any practice at it. He just blew it.
Yeah, he did. Well, and his advisor, I don't know who was advising him.
Yeah, I've seen enough West Wing to know that there were frantic meetings all the time before he.
Right.
I think he should have consulted his wife before he made a statement, because she was very present when he mentioned that he knew how to moon dance, and the reporter asked him to do it now. Can he do it now? And she said, not appropriate.
No, not appropriate.
Yeah, he's either really good at portraying the aw shucks, I'm just a country boy, or that's really who he is. And if it had been me up there, I think I would have, and I knew how to moon dance or moonwalk. I think I might have done just the same thing as him, and my wife would have said, shh.
I know my wife would have.
Yep. So when you were,
I remember when I was, I'm sorry, but when I was running my campaign, I had all the women around me telling me when I was doing stuff inappropriately.
They were your campaign advisors?
Oh, they were my campaign commanders.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing to have.
Yeah. I mean, did you get? We can go into that a little bit. Did you get to the point where you were second guessing yourself all the time about how to behave?
Well, I got to admit, you have to be brutal with me, and my wife and my campaign manager, Jackie Belishi, were very brutal with me. They would tell me when I was doing things that I shouldn't be doing, even though I'm sitting there going, "What? This is me. I can say what I want. I don't care. They don't care. They want me." What they want is a measured person, not someone that blurts out whatever they're thinking at the moment.
Right. We already have one of those. Right? I
was going to say, I'm just take a look at the president. Maybe you were right.
Exactly.
Do you think this next round of politics is people are going to try to be Trump, be Trumpier than Trump, and say it worked for him, it might work for me, or are we going to reel back to the usual? I'm not going to call it anything honest or transparent or straightforward. Most politicians are shy away from that, like like all your advisors were telling you to do, Gerald. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think anyone's going to try to out-Trump Trump? We're not seeing that so far.
No, I don't think we're seeing that.
Except maybe Bernie.
Well, I don't even think Bernie's trying that. I think what's going to go on, what's going to happen is you're going to see maturity over childish tactics.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that.
All right. We will see.
We will see.
We got plenty of time. All right. So now I guess let's get to the main event, and let me have the main event introduce himself here. Here is the main event.
Hi, I'm Bernie Sanders. I'm running for president, and I'm asking you today to be part of an unprecedented grassroots campaign of 1 million active volunteers in every state in our country. Our campaign is not only about defeating Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in modern American history. It is not only about winning the Democratic nomination and the general election. Our campaign is about transforming our country and creating a government based on the principles of economic, social, racial, and environmental justice.
Okay, so he goes on for about 10 minutes like that. And I'll put a link in the on the Triangle Talk Show website, triangletalkshow.com, if you want to see it. You'll have no trouble finding it. Well, actually, I did have a little trouble finding it. It took me a little while to get that official thing, because what YouTube kept showing me was all the TV stations and networks trying to horn in on the deal. But I finally found the real the real broadcast. What surprised me is I also found the official website, and this is the official website. It's not on there. There's very little there. There's a donate button. There's a place to put in your email address and add yourself to the list, and a store where you can buy Bernie merchandise, T-shirts. Looks like T-shirts, coffee mugs, buttons, bumper stickers, and a book. So you can buy some of that stuff, but the website doesn't have. I can't find my way back to the main. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't have the video. It doesn't have anything else. I'm a little bit surprised. They may add some more of that stuff.
Yeah, the website is not built out yet, and he hasn't even invested in any more swag than we had last time around. But I'm sure that'll be forthcoming.
It's almost like he hasn't really been planning for this. Do you think he got pushed into an earlier announcement?
I think he did. I think he was worried. I think a lot of the news outlets were reporting that the longer he takes to get in, the more of his base, his supporters, are putting their money, into another candidate. So it's taking money away from him. So I think he decided he had to jump in now and start asking for those donations and building his coalition. His state-by-state coalition that he's asking for. I myself, I started to contribute to Bernie his $27 a month just last month. So before he announced.
So there was a place to make official donations.
Act Blue. I think it was on Act Blue.
Act Blue is an independent PAC, right?
I don't know, because I think Bernie, the last time I contributed to him through Act Blue too, and whenever I clicked on the Bernie site to contribute, it took me right to that site.
I'm going to take a look.
And that was the same as last time too.
uBlock doesn't want me to go there. I'll go there temporarily. I don't know that I'm in the right place. Yeah, not for Bernie. I know Act Blue came up right away when I was looking for Bernie's website. Act Blue came up first. Let me try this again. So let's see. Yeah, there's the Act Blue for Bernie. Yeah, there we go. Now, if I go to the very bottom, it said it's paid for by ActBlue, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. They are not tax deductible and not charitable for federal income tax purposes. That looks to me like it is one of those independent PACs that is not allowed to coordinate with the campaign or, has to operate totally independently. So if you're giving them money, they're going to make TV commercials. But I don't think it counts.
I thought it was supposed to be money that was going to Bernie. But if that's true, I'm going to have to go to Bernie's site and redirect my money.
Yeah.
I think there's little pockets within ActBlue that go to different causes and different candidates. It doesn't all go into one big pot.
Yeah, I think they're do local. It looked like they were doing local candidates as well.
Yeah, and causes. Yeah, it's more of a liberal, progressive site.
That's where I had my campaign through when I first started. I started one up with ActBlue. Like I said, I didn't take donations, so I kind of shut it down right away. But I decided, and the whole thing with the money and politics thing, this is why I like Bernie. He's only taking money from individuals, not the PACs, the corporations, and all that. And when I jumped into the race, I was of that same mindset. Probably that everybody decides to run is, as soon as you jump in, you start asking for money. And after I had done that, set all that up, I go, what am I doing? I am perpetuating what I'm trying to end, So I told people, I said, I am not taking donations. Even though I had that site, I said, I'm not taking donations. I took the link off of my webpage, and I was still getting donations. I mean, even when I was saying, do not donate, I never reached a lot of money. As a matter of fact, I spent and got less than $5,000, which kept me below the threshold to report to the FCC. But at the same time, I don't see any reason in a Democratic primary for any Democrat to collect money at that time to run against another Democrat. That should be policy. That should be ideas. That should be the voters looking at the candidate, seeing what the candidate stands for, and deciding based on they're all Democrats, 2, 3, 4, 5 Democrats in the race. Why don't you go find out about the Democrats? Not how much money they raise, not how many yard signs they put up, not how much newspaper advertising they bought, but go look at the candidate. That should be the time to get to know that congressional candidate. Congressional candidates don't have that big of an area to work in. They don't need all that money. They need is to get voters involved and find out who they are.
In the primary, in the Greensboro market, the congressional districts will do television advertising for the general. I don't know about the primary. Don't know if they can come up with enough money for the primary, but they'd advertise for the general. I know that over here in the Triangle, District 4, David Price's was a lock. District 2 was highly contested. There were a lot of commercials for District 2. Coleman versus Holding. Liz, I think that Gerald has too high an opinion of the voters.
I do.
In what way?
That they're going to care about the issues and pay attention to things like that and not be swayed by advertising and the horse race. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you haven't been here. You can't analyze the North Carolina voters. You were out in California, but
that's right.
How different could we be?
Well, I don't think we're all that different from each other. There's probably a greater number of, progressives out there. But I understand that North Carolina is about 50-50, right?
Purple, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're 50-50 in voters, and we are
state.
And we are
gerrymandered
10-13
right.
in Congress.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, how did that happen? We know all about the gerrymandering problem.
But I would like to think that the voters are not swayed by the typically negative TV commercials, and it's mostly TV commercials. I think that.
Well, the research shows that negative TV commercials just dissuade people from voting. Period. That
could be, but I would like to think that people aren't swayed by TV commercials at all. Any kind of commercial, positive, negative, they would basically say, "Well, that's in 30 seconds. What can I learn about somebody?" Except that they paid for the ad. I would like to think that. I don't believe it.
Are you? How many of you guys are actively promoting Bernie Sanders on your Facebook, your Twitter, and all that right now? Are all of you doing that, or are you pretty much staying neutral?
No, I'm not on the Bernie bandwagon. I'm keeping my powder dry.
I am catching all kinds of hell, and what I'm saying is that on all of my posts, what I am putting is I say, all right, please do not disrespect Bernie on my Facebook page. Tell me who you like and why you like them. Why do you support your candidate? Do not disrespect my candidate on my Facebook page. And then right away, they will disrespect my candidate.
I was say, good luck
with that.
You know
what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's par for the course, isn't it? I mean, once you post on your page, then it's no longer on your page.
Now, are these other Democrats?
Are these?
Page. Well, that's not true, because I found out now if your original post is on your page and people come in your page and answer it, you can delete their messages. Their disrespectful message. You can, but if it goes to their page, you can't do that. You can't delete disrespectful messages on another person's page, but you can do it on your page.
Now, are these people supporting different Democrats, or are these?
No, they're just bashing Bernie. You know, Bernie made Hillary lose the election. You know, Bernie gave us Trump. Bernie is the devil incarnate. You know.
Okay, so they are progressives. They're not Trump voters coming over and just to raise hell.
They're not progressives. They're Democrats.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, who are some of the most anti-Bernie group that we have. I think even more than the Republicans.
What I'm trying to get out is that I am I'm a Roosevelt Democrat. Okay, I'm an FDR Democrat, and I try to tell people you got a problem with Bernie running as a Democrat. And they're saying, oh, he runs as a Democrat when it benefits him. No, he runs as a Democrat because it's a smart thing to do. You know, if he run, and I say you have no problem with all these Republicans leaving the Republican Party now when they see which way the wind is blowing and coming into the Democratic Party. But you have yay, another Republican has come into. You are turning the blue party into a purple party. Why do you want to do that? You know, we're Democrats. We are not moderates. We are not centrists. We are Democrats.
That's right.
And we have the same basic values that FDR had. That's where I am. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I'm just, I still believe in I'm my brother's keeper. You know, you raise everybody up. You don't just raise a few people up.
That's right.
When everybody is raised up. What was that about the boat? How do you say that? If the boat
rises,
a rising tide.
Everyone's boat.
A rising tide sinks all boats.
The tide, yeah, that's right.
But that's that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying on my Facebook. I argue with these people and I tell them what you are doing is by supporting moderates and centrists that either come in from the Republican Party or they come in because they believe running as a centrist and a moderate is the only way they can get elected, because most people out there think, well, I have to vote for a moderate or I have to vote for a centrist because that's the only person that's going to be able to beat a Republican. And every time, what is that? If you run as a Republican light, the Republican's going to win every time.
That's right.
You've got to you've got to define that difference and stand your ground and let them know that, here is the difference. Here is the separation point. Here's the line I will not cross. Mm-hmm. And I catch hell. People hate me for this.
Well, I don't think the fight is between the Republicans and the Democrats. The fight is between the candidates who take corporate money and those who do not. That's the dividing line. That's the litmus test for me.
For you, but I don't think that people out there in general are paying that much attention to it.
I think that's
we'll get lip
one
service.
Of the basic things that they need to start paying attention to. It's easily, we can get that information on the internet.
Yeah. A lot of things people should pay attention to, but they're not.
Kamala and Elizabeth Warren are both saying we're not taking PAC money, we're not taking corporate PAC money, we're not taking these corporation contributions. It's a focal point in this election. If you're going to get a progressive vote, you cannot take that money. Or if you do,
I agree.
It's going to be hard to overcome in the primary. Although we all agree, I think, we're going to vote for whoever the Democratic nominee is.
Yep, of course.
Which is not something necessarily that happened in 2016 among a significant number of Bernie backers. I've seen this.
Well, he certainly encouraged them to vote for Hillary.
He told them to. Yeah.
He absolutely did.
And with a good modicum of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
We saw him get up on stage with Hillary and say, we cannot let Trump become president.
Yep.
Yeah.
Vote for Hillary. And I have to take a sock in the face because I voted for Jill Stein.
Me too.
On that.
Me too, but I was in California.
All right. So there is a contingent, and I'm not sure whether I would count myself as one or not, that would point at you guys and say you caused Trump. Now, you didn't from California because
I wouldn't. If I wouldn't have made any difference. Else, I wouldn't have voted for because I would have been too worried.
Yeah,
because I knew that Hillary was going to win in California. So
yeah, I knew that too. My wife didn't know that, but I told her. I said, Susan, Hillary's going to win. I can vote for Jill. No biggie. Hillary's got this in the bag. Nobody's going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, but North Carolina obviously went for Trump, and by a significant margin. So your one vote didn't make a difference, and I don't know statistically if the number of votes that were lost from Bernie, folks that voted for Bernie in the primary and then didn't vote for Hillary. I don't know if that would have made a difference in North Carolina or not, but had it made a difference, would have changed the election. So
I don't know.
So
that's open to debate. But
hang your head and shake. Now we should look in the future. We should look at what's going to happen this year and next. There's one of the differences between 2016 and 2020 is that it was pretty quickly a race between Bernie and Hillary, and a two-horse race, and that's not the case now. One thing that you can, and probably you feel pretty satisfied with, is that Bernie has pulled the whole party to the left. And now we've got a dozen declared candidates and maybe 20 or 25 total that will end up somewhere serious. I think we can all be pretty proud that they are almost all really serious, qualified candidates that we could pretty much be proud of supporting no matter what. But many of them have pulled pretty far left. So
do you think they would have been that far left if not for 2016 in the Bernie campaign?
I think not. I don't think the party was going to go there by itself.
Nope.
So I beg the question, is this time around, do you vote for someone who saw which way the wind was blowing, or do you vote for someone who's been steadfast in their belief for 30, 40 years?
I don't think that's the only question. Is that the only question?
That's a good question.
You don't know. You get people coming in and they take on the flavor of the day.
Yep.
And then they get elected, and then all of a sudden it's like, what? You didn't say you would do that. You didn't say you would capitulate. You didn't say that. You didn't say that you would build a bridge to the Patriot Party or whatever the hell they are. That's what. My whole thing is the Republicans set the agenda in Congress. They come up with the legislation, and then they set the legislation. Then they ask the Democrats to build a bridge to them. But while they're building that bridge to them, they're charging the Democrats a toll charge. Okay, you gotta give us this, you gotta give us that. But this is all their legislation. I don't think they know how to negotiate. I don't think the Democrats know how to set the agenda, set the legislation, and then make the Republicans come to them and negotiate. That's my problem. If you understand what I'm saying.
I think I do. We've got Chris back, or we have General Pat.
Chris.
General Pat
Nice
appears to be back.
Nice to see you, Chris. Anyway, I see you on my feed all the time.
Who?
Chris, I think I see you on my Facebook feed all the time.
Yes, I'm there all the time. I have nothing better to do than to post stuff on Facebook. No, I really do have more important things to do than post on Facebook, but I like doing it, way before Facebook, I used to post on a lot of the other blogs and things like that. I earned myself the name the Progressive Pitbull back in 2004 and 5 when being a progressive pit bull was okay. Now you're supposed to be nice and polite and sort of, it's almost like all these kids that get trophies just for showing up, you have to thank everybody even when they screw up, and okay, fine, I'm just not that way. So are we talking about Bernie here? Are we talking about policy stuff? What have I missed?
We're talking about Bernie, and the latest thing I brought up was, well, now we've got this large race, many candidates pulled a little bit or a lot to the left, and Gerald was saying, well, which candidate are you going to go with? The one who has got the credentials, the guy who has done the polling, who's been pretty consistent, or are you going to go with the fair weather candidates who are just reading the tea leaves? So I'll let you think about that for a minute and let Liz talk about her feeling on that.
Okay.
Well, I agree that, Bernie was the one that pushed everyone to the left. And he was the one that proposed these plans, Medicare for all, a living wage, all of these policies that no one was talking about before Bernie came along. And he's been talking about, if you look on, C-SPAN of Bernie, talking to Congress, 20 years ago. And, there he is. He has the same message. He has the same message then. And then they pan out and no one is there. No one is even listening to him. But he has been steadfastly keeping to those ideals all this time. And he's the one that pushed everyone. And so, I think that you have to wonder, do you want to put your trust and your faith in someone that, has just recently gone a little to the left themselves, but maybe they haven't had such a good track record lately. That's why, I'm a total Bernie-crat, and I'll stick with Bernie.
Yep.
Okay, Chris, your turn.
Okay, well, I remembered my friend Alan Rosen in Chapel Hill telling me about this cranky old guy in Burlington, Vermont, and Democratic Socialist, and running for mayor of Burlington, and then, for this, that, and the other thing. And I knew about Bernie Sanders for a long time, okay? And I admired Bernie. And I said, well, geez, it's like too bad I don't live up in Vermont and I can't vote for the guy. But, then he runs for Congress, and I started seeing more of him. And, yeah, I saw him in those, C-SPAN things where they, the guys would get up there and they'd read your speeches, and then the camera would pull back and there's nobody there. But, it's like, yeah, but he's actually saying stuff that makes sense. I graduated from high school in 1978, and, up until that point in time, the income inequality was going down, and the value of the minimum wage and, and working salaries was going up. And in 1978, when I graduated from high school, it ground to a halt. Income inequality started inching up, and the value of, a working wage started going down. And, I'm self-employed as a photographer. I joke around. I say, I've been a semi-retired self-employed photographer since I graduated from college, because I only work 3 or 4 days a week, at most. I get paid when I shoot, but I also get paid enough so that way I can edit my pictures and, do planning and darkroom work. Don't do that anymore. But, I by and large always have paid for my own health insurance, and it was reasonably priced for what I was getting and, for what I was earning. Now that when my health insurance started skyrocketing and started coming close to the price of my mortgage, that's insane. And I see what, my friends in, other parts of the world are, paying. Yeah, they're paying slightly more in tax, but they're getting more in value than we are here. And Bernie's been talking about that for years. And so, and I was thinking, well, Obama can't run again. Who's going to run? Well, I knew Hillary was going to run. I mean, I just knew it. It's like, everything had been, geared up. The skids had been greased. Everything had been done for that. And I said, but you know what? I can't afford more of the same. I just can't. And my family can't afford more of the same. Didn't see any banksters getting thrown in jail. After the financial disaster of 2007 and 8, banksters weren't going to jail. The recovery, people said, what recovery? But people were talking about the stock market this, the stock market that. But Bernie was saying that hasn't trickled down to regular folks. And so I was seriously thinking of, I know Martin O'Malley because I have a good friend of mine, my college roommate who lived in Baltimore. When we go to these bars and watch Martin O'Malley play guitar, and I had a few beers with Martin O'Malley, and I kind of like the guy, like what he did in Maryland. And I thought, well, here's a guy, Democratic governor of America, mayor of Baltimore, longtime Democrat. I think I could get behind him if he ran. I actually started a Facebook page. And then I thought, well, he's not the most progressive candidate out there, the most progressive Democrat out there. And then I was thinking, well, what about Liz Warren? I first became aware of her during the bankruptcy bill in what was it, 2005 or 6, when she signed on that big letter, saying, this bankruptcy bill is like a travesty and it's going to wreck people's, financial lives. And, some of our own Democrats in North Carolina were just basically, spewing bank industry, credit card industry talking points. And she was right about that. But you know who was right about that too? Old Bernie was. And when Warren decided she wasn't going to run, I said, gee, you don't suppose Bernie would run, do you? How's he going to run? because he's not a Democrat. He's never going to run as a third-party candidate. He'd get creamed. And lo and behold, when he announced he was going to run, I said, okay, I got to hear from the DNC, is this kosher, yes or no? And when Debbie Wasserman Schultz released her little memo or newsletter and said, yeah, you know, Bernie's been caucusing with us for like a long time, Bernie can run as a Democrat. And it was about that time in 2015, I was the president of the Wake County Progressive Democrats, and we were all about, if anybody remembers, maybe you don't, a guy named P.R. Latta, old union guy. And, you know, he was all about, you know, the contract that the workers had with management and honoring that contract. There's a lot of contracts out there, and some of them don't seem to be honored.
Uh-oh.
We still hear you.
Go?
Yep, yeah, somebody's trying to call me, and I'm trying to get rid.
That's what happened to me,
You guys are too popular. No one ever tries to call me.
But anyway, I listened to Bernie Sanders. I was driving truck for like 10 years or better on the Tom Hartman radio show. I listened to him. What was it? Every Wednesday or every Friday he was on. Lunch with Bernie or whatever. Yeah, so I was well aware of what Bernie was and what he stood for many years before he decided to run, and I was just ecstatic when he did.
Well, there's again, a lot of the candidates have coalesced around positions that Bernie's been favoring for, as you guys say, a long, long time. You know, I guess I'll paint it with the broad brush of the Green New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few candidates, you know, like one of the guys that impressed me early on, John Delaney, who is definitely saying, no, that's not the way to go. My namesake political consultant here in North Carolina, the former Jim Hunt campaign coordinator, whose name is Gary Pierce, no relation, is
Gary Pierce. I'm kidding.
I'm not that Gary Pierce, because first of all, notice no Southern accent. You know, he is centrist guy. He would not, you know, lean in Bernie's direction. So there's going to be a lot of the Democratic Party that is not. We will see. I guess the question that I will ask, and I know which way you guys are all going to answer it, but for the audience and for the rest of the people out there, the question is, Bernie was first. Is he the one to carry the message and to get all the way through to the election? Yes. I know you guys are going to say yes, but
let me say it this way too. I get a lot of this, Bernie's too old, you know, to run. And I come back with this. I tell him, I'll take whatever time Bernie can give me as president.
You're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, 600,000 people have signed on so far.
Yeah. Bernie's 9 years older than I am, I think, or 8 or 9 years older than I am. At that age, physically, you can do fine. I know lots of people who are doing well into their 80s. There are some risks. The risks are higher. The risks of physical health and the risks of mental health and dementia go up at that age. I'm not sure that that's something that I would worry about too much. If I would worry about it with Bernie, I'd certainly worry about it with Biden too. You know, and Biden is one of those guys that will make a lot of us old white men feel much more comfortable.
You guys are young. I bet you I'm the oldest fella here. As a matter of fact, when are you going to start this show, Gary? That's a joke. I mention.
Let me explain really, really quick. I felt that if we were ever going to get remember Howard Dean back in 2004 when he was...
Yes, I remember.
Okay. Another guy from Vermont with those screwy voter registration laws, right? Okay. Howard Dean said, if you want to take back your country, you got to take back your party. And I've been working my butt off since then trying to take back my party so that my party will be the party of, reducing income inequality, reducing homelessness, reducing food insecurity and things like that, reducing Wall Street banksterism and reducing monopoly and, or monopoly and, monopsony. And I'm not seeing it, okay? And I'm not seeing it because the Democratic Party is taking too damn much money from corporate America.
That's right.
And the only way that that's going to change is if we take back our party. And, 8 years, we had, 4 years when Howard Dean was chair. And I honest to God, think the only reason why Barack Obama won in 2008 was because he kept the nomination process open, honest, and transparent. Something we did not get in 2015, 2016.
That's for sure.
So, one of the great things about Bernie is he's, in addition to pulling all these people left on a lot of these issues, he's been hammering away at, we got to get people active in the party. I don't think they did enough of that when he was, early on. And I don't think he's doing enough of it now. He needs to get all of his people to say, look, if your state, your county is having party organizational meetings, you need to go to those. You need to get involved, and you need to make sure that, they're not stabbing us all in the back for 2020. Because, one of the things, did we talk about, did you guys talk about that District 9 thing?
We haven't gotten into that much yet, but yeah.
Okay, well, when they said both sides do that, they weren't wrong. If you start looking at who this guy Dowless took money from Democrats too.
Yeah.
Democrats paid this guy to run the same kind of absentee by mail ballot operations for them that he ran for Harris and for Pager and for that sheriff and whoever else. And if we're going to have a party that represents the people, we can't have a party where the party officers and the staff and the consultants are cheating, lying, rigging, and stealing. And that's what Bernie stands for, getting rid of that. Yeah. And that's why I'm a Bernie guy.
Were you surprised that the vote today was unanimous?
No, I attended that hearing the other day. Listen, this guy Dowless, I don't know if he was stupid or incompetent. I mean, he got away with it for like a real long time, but there's only so much of that you can get away with because it all leaves trails. Okay, the fact that it took this long that nobody. Okay, there's a reason why nobody went after this guy in 2016. Because if they went after his butt in 2016, the trail would have led to Democrats as well. Seriously, we're hearing about that. Because I was amazed that when I went to the hearing, the guy was running around free as a bird. No one's done the Gomer Pyle. Citizens arrest. This guy's committed so many felonies, he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. Okay? When they finally
You mean they didn't give him immunity? I mean, he wanted immunity.
Oh, that's the thing. No. Listen.
He didn't testify.
I remember Cordell when he was at the state board earlier. Cordell was like standing there, sitting there, and, his lawyer walks up and says, well, you subpoenaed him. If you're compelling his testimony, you got to give immunity. And they said, well, tell you what, we're going to go in the back room and talk about that. And they came back, and not one head flinched. Nobody looked the other way. They all said, no, Bubba, we ain't giving you immunity. You testify voluntarily, or you're not going to testify at all. You're not getting immunity. And, okay, fine, I'm not going to testify. But they got him dead to rights anyway.
Yeah, he didn't testify at all. Do you think it was Harris's son who wrapped things up?
Oh, Harris's son is a U.S. attorney here in North Carolina who's not running for office, and he could look and say, "Wait a minute, that stinks. That looks wrong, Dad. Do you know what you're getting involved in?"
Yeah, he's not a U.S. attorney. He's an assistant. Yeah, he's an assistant. He's an AUSA.
Well,
and,
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically, he's an assistant assistant U.S. attorney who knew that wait a minute, Dad, you're telling me this guy's going to do what for you?
That is an interesting family dynamic.
He hasn't spoken to his family since his mom and his dad since Christmas. Why do you suppose that is? Because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to. Have to have that awkward conversation. Pop, either you're going to jail or this other guy's going to jail, but you're going to lose. And I was not surprised at all. But I got to tell you one thing that was really weird. I listened to two women who talked about their absentee by mail ballots. I couldn't believe that people would just somebody. Even if my next door neighbor, if my college roommate walked up to me and asked me for my absentee ballot, I wouldn't give it to him, right?
Well, but you understand politics. You understand the system. Most people don't.
Well, see, here's the thing. Why isn't the Board of Elections doing a better job of communicating to all these people? Hey, don't give it out to anybody. Don't give it to your brother. Don't give it to your son. Don't give it to your boss. Don't take it to work with you.
How would they do that? Would they run PSAs? No one pays attention.
PSAs on television.
Nobody pays attention. First of all, there are no more PSAs on television. They haven't been for decades, and even if there were, no one would pay attention.
Well,
you can't educate like that.
I think it's possible to educate people. You just got to try. I mean, my God, listen, if I sent some of those people in Bladen County comic books which explained how this works, they might actually read them. I mean, I'm not trying to say that people in Bladen County need to be explained things to with a comic book, but you know what? When Toyota or one of these car companies was going down to Alabama, you know how they trained some of their workers on how to do manufacturing work?
They beat them up.
That's what it takes.
Exactly.
We have another show going on in the background there.
I don't think so.
I hear somebody behind one of you.
I think maybe that was my husband. It could have been.
He's doing the other show. Okay.
Hey Liz, what is your husband's proclivity for Bernie Sanders here?
Oh, my husband was a delegate for Bernie in 2016.
I'm giving him a virtual handshake. Tell him.
He's getting a virtual handshake. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he was there in Philly when all of that came down.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Well,
crushing.
One of the things I hope you're very lucky that he got to go. We had people in the second. Well, it's the second now, but it was the 13th back then in 2016, who wanted to go, been busting their hump to try to get Bernie elected, holding Bernie events, knocking on Bernie doors and stuff like that. And when it came time to go in May at the district convention, they had 5 roll call votes for some strange. I'm trying to get rid of this person. I'm telling them I don't want to talk to them. They just won't take no for an answer.
They're watching the show and they know that they're going to screw you up.
I don't know what's going on. I can't. They realize I can't talk to them on the phone right now. I'll call them tomorrow. There was a lot of shenanigans going on in North Carolina and a lot of other states. We had, moles in the Bernie campaign that were doing things like, in South Carolina, somebody was going to clean up one of the offices for Bernie, and they went into a closet and they found boxes and boxes of literature, swag, signs, bumper stickers that had never been distributed. And it's like, wow, where did this come from? Well, the staffer was a mole, and they had been basically, stuff had been sent to them, and they just basically, locked it away.
Put it in the closet.
And then, it should have been sent on to the next state, but, the person in the next state was a mole, and they didn't want to deal with it. And, we had a lot of that. I was spending all my time being directed to call to other states, to ask people to vote for Bernie. I think, well, why am I not calling people in North Carolina? Why am I not running around knocking on doors with Bernie stuff? I was getting, no, you must call other states. And I was the first person in line in Wake County to vote for Bernie Sanders at early voting for the March primary. And that day I got a call from someone from another state asking me to vote for Bernie. And I said, well, too late. I was the first person to vote for Bernie Sanders. And you can put it down on Vote Builder that I've already voted. Right?
Okay, so I think we've all very much got the idea that you guys are stalwart Bernie fans.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some other related stuff, but it won't be specifically rah Bernie.
Okay.
Let me give you one more opportunity. Everybody, all together now, rah Bernie. 1, 2, 3.
Rah Bernie.
Rah
Okay.
Bernie.
Okay. So North Carolina next year will be on a Super Tuesday primary. March 3rd instead of deep into, I don't know, August or something. Good idea, bad idea?
Lousy idea.
We'll give you.
Aren't they going to have?
We'll let you show your work in a second, Chris.
Aren't they going to have the primary in December now? Next at 20.
The filing. You have to file. Everybody files to run in December before Christmas.
Yeah, 2020 primary for North Carolina will be March 3rd.
Okay.
Which is going to be 3 days after New Hampshire. But on the same day as California and a whole bunch of other states.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you do what you can do. You got to. They're going to set the rules when to vote, and you got to follow them, I guess.
Well,
I mean, the idea is to be more relevant.
That's not the rules. That's basically the North Carolina Republican Party wanting to move the primaries up from May, as they've always been since I've been voting here at 18, and just have them in March because they say, well, the sooner that we have them, I don't know, something about media buys. We want to be able to make more money or some.
When is the Supreme Court going to hear about the gerrymandering in North Carolina and rule on that? And is that a reason for them moving up the primaries?
No, the primary's been moved up since 2016. It has nothing to do with the gerrymandering case. Although we're running out of time to do a lot of stuff related to voting. We're running out of time to, set up for, hey, look, we don't have this bipartisan redistricting commission yet, okay? So we don't know what maps are going to come out. If the maps come out and they're just as crappy as the old maps were, then we're going to have to go to court again, and we might not be able to go to court before the filing starts in December.
We got, 3 tracks of legal maneuvering, court maneuvering on these? There's one in
Congressional, State House, and State Senate. They're all screwed.
Yeah, but yeah, and I guess I know that the State House and Senate are up at heading for the North Carolina Supreme Court. The congressional districts are heading for the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think they're going to do their arguments on that sometime in the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. But they won't announce anything until they usually do it in June or something.
Correct.
So we'll hear about that. Chris, you don't think it's a good idea to move the primary up, and it's not the Republicans that did it; it's the Democrats that moved I don't even know if there's going to be. There'll be a Republican primary.
No, it was the Republicans who moved the primary up for all parties from May until into March. That was one of the first things that they did is they moved that up.
Okay. And
again, it was something to do with media buys. And to be honest with you, I think this whole 6-month drawn-out thing with primaries and caucuses is nuts. What I'd love to see is one-day national primary in April or May, and we start, eliminating. If we had the one-day national primary, there'd be people that say, okay, well, that's kind of what we have anyway, because everybody is watching what everybody else is doing in all these other states. I'd love to be able to see a one-day national primary and then a runoff like they do in France. Okay, France has a national election, right? And for like the party favorites, and then they have a runoff. Okay, I've heard people talk about, well, let's do away with these things and let's have instant runoff voting. Which, my God, if we can't count all the first column votes from Maine to Alaska, how are we going to count second and third column votes on all these different voting machines? So, I guess we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I'd love to see a one-day national primary. I'd love to see a gradual, runoff, and then, I'd also love to take all this private money out of politics and just basically say, okay, you're running for president. This is the budget that you get of public money.
Yep.
Spend a dime more of this. If you blow it all in the first 2 weeks, so be it. Like they do in other civilized countries that have, single-payer health care.
Yep.
But let me go back. You think, Gary, you were saying earlier that I had too much confidence in the voters about getting to know the candidate rather than following the money. I want to toot my own horn here just for a minute, because I think it's a good thing. I spent less than $5,000 on my campaign, and I've got over 7,000 votes. Okay, where my opponent spent over $80,000 on his campaign to take the win with 20. Well, he won by a large margin, but what I'm saying is that every other race that was going on between the progressive and the established Democrats in North Carolina, they all spent way more money than I did. You probably know Adam Coker.
I don't, but go ahead.
But anyway, he spent over $50,000. I got just a few hundred votes fewer than he got. So what I'm saying, in the primary, I don't think that money between Democrats in a primary is the most important thing. But you are right. Yes, the more money you spend, the more people you reach, the more yard signs you get, and everything. But I think that if we are true to our Democratic roots, we will start forcing people to get to know their candidates and not depend on the money to tell them who they are.
All these people out there don't want anything to do with politics until, well, for the primary, they might start paying attention in the middle of February with our March 3rd primary. And for the general election, don't talk to me about it until late October. And then I'll start paying attention. That's what I hear. I mean,
why is that?
You guys are you're all surrounded by highly motivated, politically charged people, but look past that core of folks that are standing around you and everybody else that's going, I don't care.
Actually, I remember the funny thing about 2016 is that we had a real hard time getting people motivated to, it's like, here in Wake County, they weren't really trying to, they were very lackadaisical about the whole primary. Oh, are we going to have a sign shop? Are we going to do poll greeting? Are we going to, and it's like, they weren't really, I will tell you, as the person that was kind of in charge of the GOTV effort for Wake County in 2008 in the May primary, we had a lot more going on. Okay. We had a good sign shop. We had, slate cards and, palm cards and things like that. We had, people were excited. People were energized. I was using the 2008 primary as sort of like the spring training as a tune-up game to warm up for November. Okay, and granted, that was that was after Bush. Okay, right after 8 years of Bush, we wanted to get rid of Bush, so people were excited about that. I'm grateful that Barack Obama was my president. I didn't agree with everything he did. I damn sure didn't agree with the way he gutted the 50-state strategy of party building that Howard Dean started. Before Howard Dean got seduced by the dark side of the force, he became a K Street, lobbyist or something like that. But Dean got people energized and motivated. Read Herding Donkeys by Ari Berman to find out how it worked nationwide, but also how it worked in North Carolina, and I was a big part of that in 2008. But Obama and OFA gutted the state party operations, and that's one of the things, if you read in WikiLeaks and in Donna Brazil's book, that's the reason why Hillary Clinton could went in and basically picked up a Democratic Party that was broke and put it on life support. She was, her team in Brooklyn got to, decide what messages were going out, who got hired by the DNC. And if you don't think that extended to, kind of making things, greasing the skids for her going into 2016, I get a bridge out in the desert to sell you.
Hey, Liz, welcome to North Carolina.
Yeah, welcome to North Carolina. Woo.
Thank you.
Well, I moved to North Carolina from Washington State, that
wow.
liberal bastion out there,
Mm-hmm.
and only because my wife lived in North Carolina. I had to come all the way to North Carolina to find the love of my life.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Chicago, but I found my wife here in North Carolina, born and raised from Winston-Salem.
Wow.
So we've only got a few more minutes left. We'll have to wrap up at about 9:30. What I'm curious is, now that Bernie has announced, and you guys are all very ardent supporters, what's the structure? What's going to happen here? Does he have a state chairperson? Does he?
Oh, no.
Does he have infrastructure being built yet? And where will you guys fit into it?
I hope he doesn't do what he did in 2016, which is to basically wait until the last minute to hire somebody for his state director in North Carolina, who turned out to be a Hillary Clinton mole. But oh God,
who was that?
Aisha Do. He was the former first vice chair of the state party. I mean, I got very involved in all the Bernie Facebook pages. I didn't see anything of her being pro-Bernie. She had been taking pictures, with all their little YD friends and their little "I'm with her" buttons.
God.
And then all of a sudden, she's working for Bernie. And I think a lot of that had to do with, this is the first time Bernie ran a campaign as a party, trying to get to be a party nominee. And he listened to people who told him who he should hire, and he hired some of the wrong people. And one of the persons he hired was a guy who used to be the executive director in the North Carolina Democratic Party. His name is Robert Dempsey. Dempsey got fired in 2014, went up to Virginia, got fired from there. But before he was in North Carolina and Virginia, he was in Vermont. So for some reason, Bernie trusted, somebody said, well, who should I hire? And, well, there's this guy Dempsey. He used to work in Vermont. Oh, I'll hire him. And,
You do a good Bernie.
That was pretty Bernie.
God. Oh, Dempsey was a disaster wherever he went. Not so much that he didn't win votes for Bernie. He was working in states where Bernie couldn't lose, but he could have done better. He could have got more delegates. And Dempsey recommended hiring people like Aisha Do in these other states. When I heard that she got hired, I was at the Burning Coal Theater in Raleigh, and when this guy Corbin Trent told me that they hired her, and my jaw dropped. I went, And he said, oh, but she knows a lot of people in the Democratic Party. And I said, yes, she knows the wrong people in the Democratic Party. And I called 10 people who knew her, including 2 people who used to be very high up in the Democratic Party. And one of them said he wouldn't hire her to walk his dog. And the other one said, she's a mole. And I said, there's 3 things that she needs to do to convince me that she is for Bernie and she's going to, do her best to get him elected. One is, as the former Mecklenburg County Democratic Party chair, she's going to have to get people organized at the precinct level to become delegates for Bernie to work their way up through the, county convention and the district convention. Didn't happen. Okay. 2, SEC meeting in January. It was either January or February, and she's going to have to put on a big Bernie presentation, right? Table, maybe a Bernie cardboard figure, or Larry David, I don't know. She couldn't even do that. She showed up 4 hours late with no Bernie swag, and she didn't talk to anybody. She was the face of the campaign, but she didn't show up. Okay.
Well, one thing that he has got to do this time around is really hit the South. He's got to go back to his civil rights roots, where he was helping the black during that time, the blacks, and he's got to pound on his heritage during the civil rights movement, because he is hurting with the blacks. That's where he's hurting really badly right now, except for the millennial blacks. Evidently, he's okay with that. It's the older ones that he has got to let them know that he has a strong civil rights heritage background. And he was chained to a black woman at some protest. I forget the name of it. But
who he hired in 2016, an African-American woman, you'd think that would have helped. It didn't. Does anybody know about HK on J, Historic Thousands on Jones Street?
Yeah, I was there.
You do it annually. Okay. In 2016, do you remember Reverend Barber dissing Bernie from the podium? The reason he did that was because we were trying to get a Bernie contingent to march with the NAACP like Bernie has done. Okay? And we couldn't do it. Aisha blew it. And basically, and then on top of that, the officers of the North Carolina Democratic Party African American Caucus were desperately trying to hook up with Bernie and the National Bernie campaign to see what they could do, right? They could not get a call through to the state director or to the regional director for Bernie Sanders when he finally came down to North Carolina, like a week or 2 before the March primary. They finally got a chance to talk with him, but it was a disaster. So yeah, you're right. Bernie's got to make these inroads. He's got to get in tight with the African American community, with the Hispanic, with the Asians. But the thing is, he's got to have he's got to have people working for him who will be able to do that, and it won't be sabotaging his campaign. That's, I think, what hurt Bernie the most in 2016, is he had sabotage going on in his campaign. Okay? Does anybody remember Datagate?
Not too many gates.
Okay, Datagate. That was when the people were working with the Vote Builder. And they...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, remember that? Vote Builder? They had people in Bernie's campaign looking at Hillary Clinton's volunteers. You think that was a one-way mirror? Or do you think that they could look at it both ways? Well, Bernie got in trouble for that, okay? But that piercing of the veil like that, the Hillary Clinton people knew who all of Bernie's volunteers were. How do you think those 126,000 Brooklyn voters got disenfranchised? Does anybody remember that? They got stricken from the rolls. And it was a Republican and a Democrat. The Democrat was a Hillary person. The Republican sold her rat-infested brownstone house to Nita Lowey's daughter's real estate syndicate. Nita Lowey, congresswoman from New York State, and a big Hillary supporter. Okay? They went and they had access to all of Bernie's volunteers, all of Bernie's supporters on Vote Builder, and they purged them with surgical precision in New York, other states. Does anybody remember California? When you register to vote in California, okay, you can either vote in person or you can vote by mail, right?
Right.
Well, all these people registered to vote for Bernie, and they registered to vote in person. But somehow somebody got into the California voter registration database, and after the deadline for mailing out those vote by mail ballots had expired, they switched those voters to vote by mail. So when those voters showed up at their precinct to vote on election day, oh, wait a minute, you're supposed to vote by mail. We don't have enough ballots here for you.
Liz, did you hear that going on out there?
There were a lot of things going on out there.
So we're going to have to wrap up, but Liz, it sounds like you have a job to do. Now that you're here, you can bring your experience from California into North Carolina and get busy.
Yeah, I'm looking to meet some people in our revolution. I understand that there's our revolution in the Sandhills, which is near to me. So I've reached out to them. Haven't heard back from them yet.
All right.
But
well,
it's all about local for me.
Liz, friend me on Facebook. Friend me on Facebook. Okay.
Friend me on Facebook too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be friends on Facebook. Perfect.
all right. Well, speaking of which, then I'll put in a plug for the Triangle Talk Show. We got a Facebook group, Triangle Talk Show, on Facebook. We got Twitter. I think we are Talk Triangle, @Talk Triangle or something like that, and a webpage, triangletalkshow.com. This has been entertaining.
Sorry about that.
Somewhat educational, and I'm looking forward to. I'm paying a lot more attention to this political cycle than I ever have before.
Yeah,
and
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, well, I think we can thank our illustrious president for that.
Cheeto head.
Yeah. So I'm watching, but I'm like I said, I'm not in anybody's camp right now. I'll be looking to see what everybody's got to say. I am generally cynical about the idea that I'm going to learn very much about what anybody might be able to do. I guess the other thing about it is that I've realized over the course of my long life that all of this beating the drum about policies and the things that we support, once an administration gets elected and starts to actually try to do anything, very little actually gets done. Obama in 8 years had 2 or 3 major policy initiatives actually get through with Obamacare, the serious compromise that is Obamacare being the big one, and no one's happy with that. Gay marriage and gays in the military, those were things that he didn't have to drag through Congress. He could just declare them once he found his evolution, once he evolved into those positions. It's really hard to get things done. We can scream and holler about what we want to get done, but realize not very much of that is actually going to get done. So, I find myself easily able to vote for someone who is going to generally push the country in the direction that I would like to see it go, without worrying too much about the details. So, but I'll find someone to vote for by a year from now. It'll be interesting in the meantime. Thank you guys for coming by. Let's see. Put up some titles here. Elizabeth never showed up. I'm not sure.
We're thinking of her.
Yeah, I hope she's enjoying. The program. Liz Myers Chamberlain down in Pinehurst. Knock a few balls around there for me.
Welcome to North.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome to North Carolina. My dad is the reason I moved here. He retired just up the road from you in Whispering Pines.
Yep.
And
that's where my kids live.
Yep. And my stepmom is in Pinehurst. Unfortunately, she's not mentally with us anymore. She's over at one of the retirement homes, but she's been there. She's been down that area once my dad passed away for quite a while.
Republican.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Dad and my stepmom are long past irreconcilable Republicans, so don't worry about them.
You got my sympathy.
Yeah. And Chris, glad to finally get you on the show to the point where we could hear and see from you.
Yeah, so I would have been on the entire time. Like I said, I was at a precinct organization meeting. I'm really sorry about that, but I thought I was going to get, attacked by a coyote out there or something.
Yeah. Well, we will do this again. We'll have more opportunities. And
right.
And Gerald, it's good to meet you. Don't lose all your money. All of you. Don't lose all your money out there in Vegas. And
Susan won't let me. She put me on a budget.
When will you be back in North Carolina?
Actually, we'll be back on the 27th back in Charlotte. We're delivering an exhibition load back in Charlotte on the 27th. So we'll be back for a few days.
Okay. Speaking of exhibitions in Charlotte, everybody going to the Republican convention?
You kidding?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, still don't have a location for the 2020 DNC convention, although people are telling me it's either going to be in Milwaukee or Minneapolis.
Yeah, I don't think I know. I don't think they've announced. So
It's not announced. I've heard Miami, too.
Oh, God. I do not want to be in Miami.
Well, that would bring to the forefront the global warming issue.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even get to talk about the Green New Deal
Because
much.
they'd be underwater some of the time.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is that people may be wondering, I've done 2 shows about Bernie Sanders. What about all the other candidates? If I don't know anybody that's involved in their campaigns, and if they want to come on and do a show, I'd be glad to. With the number of candidates that we're going to have, that would fill up a weekly Triangle talk show for the rest of the year. So it would certainly take the pressure off.
Can I just say to everybody, please do not disrespect any Democratic candidate. Support your candidate. Do not disrespect any of the others.
And I always tell people to do your due diligence. Just because somebody says something in their campaign stuff doesn't mean it really happened that way. Yeah. Do your due diligence. And well, I know that's not me.
It's me. It's my wife, who is what are you? Are you at the? Wait a minute, my phone not working. Are you at the train station?
No, but I'm going to be a few minutes early.
Okay, well, I'm wrapping up a show. I will see you in a few minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Love you. Bye.
What I was going to say real quick was that I was attending a progressive meeting last night, and people were talking about, who are you going to support? And some of these people were saying, well, it's too early to tell. I'm going like, I don't really think so. I mean, as an officer in the Democratic Party, at least for the time being anyway, if I'm still an officer in the Democratic Party after this cycle of officer elections, I will support whoever the party's eventual nominee is. But as a individual Democrat, I have an interest in seeing somebody who represents my point of view succeed, and I am going to do my darndest to get that person elected. And the weird thing is, the State Progressive Caucus basically got started on the backs of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Almost everybody in it was a Bernie-crat.
Yeah.
And now the weirdest thing is, now they don't want to. Now they don't want to support Bernie. Which is weird,
Well, we got a lot of choices.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And there'll be more yet to come. And most of the people out there, they don't care yet. That will be it for episode 50 of the Triangle Talk Show, February 21st, 2019.
Bye, everybody.
The Berning
Thanks
Answer.
for joining us.
Yes, he's running. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.